It is bright. Good afternoon, good evening, guten Tag and Morgen. It's the extent of my German. Was that even German? Hey, welcome to VMworld. Welcome to a live edition of In Tech We Trust podcast with a very special series of guest speakers who I just kind of pulled out of the audience because everybody I had scheduled flaked on me because it's the first day of VMworld.
So we're second choice.
Second stringers.
I just showed
bottom
up
with a barrel on some of us.
Yeah, you know, Nigel and Mark and everyone else, and even Mr. Rickatron himself are not here, amazingly enough. Or if they are here, they're hiding. So I figured I'd get some people up here together, talk about what we're seeing at the show so far, kind of get an understanding of some divergent viewpoints on what VMworld is about this year, and then basically talk about just anything else we want to talk about for the next roughly 45 minutes because Tim and his little DevOps party went 15 minutes long.
No, technical difficulties.
Yes, okay. So first, you all know who I am. To my left.
Hi, I'm Lauren Malhoit. I'm a TME at Cisco and enjoying VMworld thus far.
Outstanding.
I'm James Bowling, principal consultant for GDT out of Dallas, Texas, and also enjoying VMworld. Had my first sober night last night, which was awesome.
Wow, I did not.
Miracle.
I did not partake in said policy. I didn't get the memo, apparently. You were supposed to share that. My name's Tim Jabut. I'm formerly a solutions architect with BB&T Bank, and this week I'm unemployed. Fear not. Moving on to greener pastures, going to VMware.
And I'm Tim Antonowitz. I'm actually an independent consultant this week.
Outstanding.
Which is fantastic. So for the first time since 2007, I'm brandishing the green lightsaber.
Right, the green lightsaber.
Yeah.
I guess it's better than purple. You kind of straddling both sides of the fence. So Tim,
true.
you were with Pernix. You recently left. Tim's on the market. Hire him. I know he's probably talking to like 5,000 companies because he's a VCDX and he's super awesome and he can cover the entire state of Maine on his own.
Anybody can cover the state of Maine on their own.
Well, yeah.
There's 5,000 people and 100,000 lobsters. So.
It sounds like a seafood party.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
But basically, it's pleasantly refreshing to
have no responsibility.
Have no responsibilities. Well, sort of, and basically looking at all the technology and the partners here with a different perspective. So I'm not just looking at who I can collaborate with on some new project. I'm actually evaluating each and every technology in each company and saying, where do I want to be? Do I want to get involved in this cool technology, this new product? And that's where we're rolling.
Does booth size dictate interest? I mean, it's like I love to come to VMworld and I love to walk around at like the fringe end booths.
Yeah. Okay.
Booth. Yes, booth. I like to look at the small booths and I want to see because those are the guys who are like, they bet all, right? It's like they have $500 for their marketing budget and then they,
And it's actually pretty cool. You look around, you find some of these smaller booths and these people are working hard to talk to anybody,
right?
Because they want to get the word out, and it's great. You just walk in, and all of a sudden you've got the CIO and the CEO, CFO standing right there talking to you. I mean, of course, they're all like sharing an Uber in here, No,
I mean, it reminds me. I mean, I think
they're all here, and they want to talk. They want to get the word out.
Yeah, it's the tier one lead generation event of the year for a lot of companies. I remember, I think 2011, seeing Tintry, and going, seeing Kieran in the booth in this small little table in the back talking about VMware storage and all this stuff, and then going, wow, that's really interesting. And then the following year, they had like a giant ass booth and got a best of VMworld and all that jive or something like that. It's always interesting. Like I said, every year I like to crawl the booth, the Solutions Exchange floor, and kind of see where people have graduated up or down in the marketing spend ladder, and then also gauging, activity in the booth, right? I mean, every year, the last couple of years, SimpliVity, they put the car on the booth floor, on the show floor a couple years ago. I think I counted 7 or 8 cars on the floor just today walking around. So you can see how the, everyone else is a thought follower.
Well, it's nice to see even, some of the booth sizes get bigger. But you still see the CEO and whoever working hard in there. Andy Warfield at Coho, gave a 10-minute tech talk earlier today for vBrownbag, and I see him in the booth, and so just an example of, I think, doing it right.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, it's I did. It wasn't Data Gravity. It was one of the new data companies. It's kind of a software storage play, but they had a booth that they kind of showed. They had like a little demo station to show some of their stuff, and then there was like these 3 stages, and they had a girl jumping from each one to the other, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that tells me about your storage, but it's just certainly entertaining.
They have a crowd all day long.
All day long. But that's a different approach, right? I mean, there's sometimes it's a gimmick, and the gimmick works to get seats or people in there. But are they the right people? Are they really interested in your product, or are they just there to oogle or take swag?
I'm kind of tired of all the gimmicks, to be completely honest. I didn't come here for that. If I'm going to come to your booth, I'm coming to your booth to know about your product. I don't care what you have there. The whole gimmicky thing, that's cool. All the tchotchkes, awesome. My kids love them, but I don't really care about all that.
So that's interesting, though, because there's over 23,000 people here. How many people take that same approach or that same stance? It's, if you're that young, hungry company, if you don't generate a buzz, if you don't generate people, however gimmicky it is to get there, without sales, you've got nothing.
Yeah, but
there's qualifying the leads that come in, right? And I think a lot of there's an entire game theory around how to manufacture your booth to maximize flow, to get the people in the booth longer, to identify and qualify those leads on the floor in real time, because it's so much easier for you to do that up front and spend a little more time and effort and investment up front getting the right kind of people you want to follow up with after the show than it is scanning every single person that comes by the booth and then having to cold call them and waste time and effort with your inside sales team.
How many of us hate that? Seriously, you go to a conference like this, and the next 4 months you'll be bombarded with emails, phone calls, and how many times does no mean no? I mean, I'm not the right person. But it's also
it's also kind of the price of admission. We know going into this, or at least you should.
No, the price for admission is a lot of money.
That's why I use his email address. I don't.
I use Tim Jabut at Yahoo for my email address when I go to a trade show. Yahoo!
No, but one thing I have noticed, like I walked around the expo floor this morning, or not this morning, but this afternoon, and last year there were a lot of rogue scanners out there. It seems like this year they've calmed down, or at least so far. I know it's really early.
I had some aggressive scanners today.
Did you?
Yeah. And I flipped it around, and she's like, yeah, she grabbed my badge. I was like, excuse me, we just met.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm like,
but did you have a big booth?
At least can we have a date? I mean, a coffee?
Big booth.
Big booth. All right. So
this conversation has taken a totally different situation. We've gone off the rails.
That's okay. We'll get back on the rails. So let's talk keynote, right?
I'd rather talk Docker Flocker.
Damien is somewhere in the audience. So keynote address.
Weak.
Weak?
My
weak
opinion.
Sauce.
It's like last year. But it's the first one. Tomorrow, hopefully, it'll be better. I will say that probably the most interesting part was the end, where I wish they would have given more time to that instead of what they were talking about before.
The DevOps discussion, the container, the VMware integrated container solution. And if you missed, we did a talk at the SolidFire booth today, me and Jeremiah and Keith Norby, about that. And I think all of us, the general consensus was that we wish there was more time with Kit, more time talking about that, because that was definitely more relevant to kind of the future of where some of these workloads are going, or where some of this management is going. And technology that's very, very hot in the, in the larger scale spaces, versus I think what VirtuStream would have the offer or the validation around VirtuStream. I mean, it's the general, my thought there is that, well, that's a decent sized service provider company, just got picked up. It's amazing that they went from, you just got bought 3-4 weeks ago, and now you're doing the keynote at VMworld. That's a lot of stock and faith and push into that particular product line, and I think it's kind of telegraphing the general direction that VMware was wanting to take their business model.
So
nobody can hear the roll eyes.
Well, I wasn't rolling my eyes at that specifically, but I don't feel like we can actually talk too much about that piece because we didn't get much.
Right.
So that's it. We didn't get much of it. We needed more of it, and that's where everyone wants to focus right now. The whole vMotion thing. I mean, that was cool and all, but aren't we supposed to be worrying about applications? I don't
Outcomes.
care about the VM anymore.
The pets and cattle argument, to a certain extent, right? No. But in reality, though, I mean, I see where you're going with that, right? It's like, all right, great, you showed me, cloud to cloud vMotion. Okay, well, you kind of have to tease that out. I think they put a lot of emphasis on that, and I think my tweet out was like, hey, look, it's VMworld 2008.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Jeremiah did. The one thing that Jeremiah did say in your talk with him and Norby as well was, that's great, but basically what they demonstrated was from a VMware-centric cloud to a VMware-centric cloud. We want to see it be able to go choose your player, Azure, Google, Amazon. I mean, if you really want to drive down costs, you have to be able to actively select what is the best price model or the best performance model for your company.
Hey, and if I'm a cloud provider, how do I engage in that strategy? How do I bring myself? How do I enable, or do I even bother jumping on board and allowing that to happen? Because it's like I don't want to make it easier for people to migrate off my cloud. I want to make it easy for people to migrate in and lock them in because that's my revenue model.
Well, maybe
Sometimes.
not. Well, I mean, maybe this is where we'll see a shift and people will start to trust. And by people, I mean the providers themselves will start to trust that we're providing an actual service that people will use and use enough, regardless if they're moving on or off. They're going to see some type of return that's worth the time.
Well, and wasn't that the big debate a few years back, just, the Cloudlockin, and so now vendors or cloud providers aren't doing that as much anymore because basically we called them out on it, right?
Right, but I do also think, and I don't see Amazon shrinking at all. I see their revenues going up. I see they can't buy hardware fast enough to meet the demand that they have for the cloud services, and even with as many players in the space as there are, they still continue to have this massive growth wave. And obviously that's the big competition for a lot of the people, a lot of the companies that are here presenting and spending money at VMworld. It's not a VMware friendly environment, right?
Not unless you lay Ravello on top of it.
I was going to bring that up. Scott actually tweeted out during that time. He said that Mike Preston actually showed us real cloud to cloud.
Right, from Amazon to Google. Absolutely.
Not
about
the first.
6 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's cool that we can do it. I'm sure it'll be used. I'm sure some people will find it useful to provide a solution for a problem that they may have, but I definitely don't think it was that big of a deal to keep pushing it out like that.
Do you think that the perceived interest, it seemed like VMware themselves were very high on this technology, like, very pushing it, very like, hey, this is the bomb. You've never seen this before. Is that them being a little tone deaf of what resonates with the end user and customer base?
Or is it there wasn't enough meat anywhere else, so they had to really push something as being a major feature?
I mean, I feel like we spent like a half hour on it, and basically they showed us a demo of vMotion, which it is cool, but like we all know how to migrate VMs, right? So sure, give it some time, but I don't know that it needed 25% of the time.
Yeah, I think that with a lack of any real technical meat,
right,
they had to.
Yeah, all of us want to see
they
the
had to tap
technical
dance a
aspect.
lot,
I'm like,
you know?
hey, the devil's going to be the details.
like-
I guarantee you
like,
that
hey-
live migration is going to have a Rolling Stone size rider.
I was expecting
basically,
the tap
telling you
dancing
what-
apps to come out a couple more times.
Yeah, it's like you can only do this on Tuesday when the solstice, when there's an eclipse.
And it's only if you're standing in the downward dog pose.
Well, that's more like bending over, but yeah.
Whatever. I don't do yoga. Thank you.
Well, I think it was interesting. I mean, you call out the end where they talk about containers or the more dev kind of centric stuff, but they were at least just talking about tech. Like, I think that's what was interesting. Right. Like, it wouldn't have mattered if it was the coolest fad in tech right now. The fact that they were talking about tech, we were excited. And the first hour and a half was spent kind of
marketing,
smoke and mirrors. Yeah,
but that's what we're here for, right?
Live market slides.
We had the same complaint last year, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of people were saying, "Look, I'm tired of all the marketing fluff. Just give me the tech. That's what I want to hear. I didn't come here to listen to marketing fluff. If I wanted that, I'd just go to the website."
Since when did it become the norm to have the first day keynote be all of this marketing and fluff? Even a few years back, there was tech. There were new releases, there were new features, and now it really is just let's put up the different people, different faces, so that everyone on Twitter will be excited about that, and we'll just have them talk about some stuff for a little while.
And by the way, I honestly feel like they need to work on their presentation skills.
Well, you put yourself in their shoes. I mean,
No.
Executives speak in front of other executives, and it is, it's daunting. You're up on a stage in front of 25,000 people or 26,000 people. It's always something that's tightly scripted. It's not organic. I mean, it's not like a conversation like we're having, right? You kind of have to follow it because there's a lot riding on it, and that's just the nature of it. But like I said, I've seen OpenStack Summit Vancouver, right? I watched the, I think it's Atul from Walmart Labs get up there, and you could actually see somebody who's like a hardcore developer, done it all of his life, kind of come alive over the course of a 20-minute presentation and loosen up as he got more comfortable and better, easier for him to to actually have the conversation. You go from that tight, rigid part, if you've never spoken in front of a lot of people, to finally sitting back, relaxing a little bit, kind of like what we're doing here.
Yeah, but some of those people that were on the stage today have done that a couple of times. So I would like to think that they would be more comfortable by now.
All right.
Well, maybe it's not the stuff that they're comfortable with. I mean, you talk about a developer
How
talking about it,
excited
and
are you
he's
really
passionate,
Yeah, the passion about it, right? How excited are you really saying? And here's vMotion.
But that's
Watch this paint dry.
I'm not sure if you're familiar.
Hey, you know what? It's 2015. Here's vMotion.
yeah, but that's enough to get a job apparently.
I don't know. I don't work.
Shouldn't you be the one to tread lightly right now?
And yeah. Announcement forthcoming.
Nobody watches this.
That's Tim Jabut. Tim Jabut.
At yahoo.com.
At yahoo.com.
I have no voice left. There's no yodeling.
That was planned.
So, I think I tuned out a little bit of it. I probably left a little bit early because I had to go do a presentation. But the Lightwave and Photon stuff, the container integration, the DevOps integration into the VMware space. I mean, gosh, you look over here at the Hang Lab, or the Hang space. There's like half the space is dedicated to DevOps. There's like 4 people in there.
Well, that's kind of one of the things that I was wondering is that did they only talk such a small slice of that because of this and to see how successful it is? Maybe they feel that while it's a hot button issue in tech in general, maybe they don't feel that it's enough of their audience that it speaks to them and that they can get that information here in a different format.
Or is it such a threat and direct competitor to their way of life that let's de-emphasize?
Well, wouldn't you bury it then? Why would you even devote a whole section to it?
Because you have to pay lip service to that, right? And if you're not talking about it, then you're behind the times or you're behind the curve. I mean, everybody is talking containers and agile and microservices and continuous integration, continuous delivery as, like, if you're not doing this tomorrow, your company is going to crumble to the ground and be swallowed by an inferno of death.
This is where I saw the biggest, what's like dichotomy, I guess, of opinions. People are like, I'm really excited about this. This is awesome. And then I saw like, wait, if you just put a container on a VM, like, isn't that just a VM? So
Exactly.
well, I don't get it. So I mean, but it was weird to see both sides. I mean, I thought it was the biggest debate of the whole session.
It's like, hey, dog, we saw you had a VM, so we put a VM inside your VM inside a VM.
Then there's a JVM.
On-premise,
Premises.
that is all.
You're right. That was the biggest debate on Twitter, actually.
I think if you were in here, I think you heard a bunch of people actually go, "Oh," whenever he said the first time on-premise. Oh,
My vBrownbag.
The premise was that it was on premises.
Yeah, my vBrownbag bingo card had on-prem, on-premises,
And on-premise.
On-prem. It's something. I had all three of those at the same line, and I actually.
But we couldn't
I
get
got
them to
bingo.
say all three.
Yeah.
just so you know, all of the cards were the same, dude. Nobody had a different card. So everyone should have had bingo at the same freaking time, okay? And if you didn't, then please bring your badge up here to the stage so we can dispose of it so you can go home. No, I'm just kidding. We wouldn't do that. But everyone was a winner, and obviously a lot of people thought they lost.
During that session, yeah.
Well, I mean, no offense, Alistair, but damn, dude, those stickers, I couldn't peel a single one of them off. I felt like, you know...
I didn't have one
exercise in
problem pulling
frustration.
those stickers off.
Poor
Everyone
Al.
was complaining, and I was like, oh, no problem. Put it on.
Here on Marketing Sticker Talk.
Let's bash the guys that are letting us.
What kind of
shoe
vinyl
fill.
do you like to use on your stickers? Does 256 colors work?
Okay, see, so we just took too much time on that.
Yes.
Just like they took too much time on, the whole vMotion.
Moving along.
Thank you.
So, what do you come to expect this week? I mean, is there anything that is going to blow your mind? I mean, if HP buys VMware just so that they can turn around and start to rename their products every 6 weeks.
Speaking of, we didn't cover Evo SDDC
Oh yeah,
manager.
we'll do that. We'll come back to that one. But is there anything that you would shock you this week if it was announced?
There would be a lot of things that might shock me.
I was going to say there's a lot of things that could be shocking if they were announced this week. Thanks.
For instance,
Cisco and VMware shake hands, and they're good friends now. That would shock me.
well, interesting enough, I did at the same time I was watching the keynote. I was watching Tim Cook from Apple and John Chambers from Cisco on Periscope give a presentation at the global sales kickoff for Cisco that's going on right now. Right, that's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, there's somebody who ups the game in terms of having two people discuss at the same time as the VMworld keynote, right? Which obviously is not broadcast live to the world, but the Cisco thing apparently was.
They're just a little company, though. They don't really matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little company.
Wait, which one, Cisco or Apple?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cisco and Apple are merging to build the Internet of Fruit.
It's poor taste in words.
I know. Just keep in mind, folks, we have no liquor on the panel.
I was actually kind of upset about that.
Yes.
Because like I said, I had my one sober night last night and nothing today so far. So it might be a second sober night, which is
Right on.
really bad.
It was a lot more fluid when we did have the alcohol. I'm just saying.
Well, we also had an agenda.
No, we didn't.
Today we're just kind of winging it. But all right, so going back to the Evo stuff, Evo discussion, right? I totally forgot about that, primarily because all I saw was a couple pictures of like, oh look, you can turn up the Evo in like some clicks.
Don't speak too loud about it because they're right over there.
Oh my God.
By the way, whose idea was that to put equipment in a room that was about 900 degrees with the number of people in here to begin with?
Yeah.
Bad call. And
Well,
it's loud.
they did it last year, or they did it at Barcelona with the challenge. I mean, here, click this button 5 times. How fast can you do that?
But why does the equipment have to be here?
I think it's only a problem for you tall people because I've felt nothing but a cool breeze the whole time I've been in here.
I don't know if it's a
I'm
breeze
not
you
even
want.
kidding. I have not been hot even once. It's amazing.
Maybe it's the booze you didn't drink last night.
Yeah, you weren't like sweating off the alcohol, right? No. Getting back to the Evo, what in my view looked like Evo Rack, right? It wasn't the rail stuff.
Even on the website, I looked it up, and apparently they're saying Evo Rack was the code name for it, and now it's really called Evo SDDC Manager. Now that it's actually released.
So now we're going to hear that anytime they rename something, they're going to be like, "Oh, that was the code name, and this is the new." I mean, what it actually is.
I thought Marvin was the code name.
That was the original.
So it's going to be Evo SDDC Cloud Air Native Hybrid App Platform.
No, it's a,
containerization.
Okay, we're spinning out of control again.
So there's a real interesting thing that with that discussion, I'm really curious how licensing comes into play, right? So
yeah, you're
obviously going to cater this towards the top 10% of your customer, the enterprise customer. Being able to deploy 1 or 1,000 of these racks. What happens when you're out of ELAs? I mean, I think that's one of the things
that was that type of customer has an ELA, but what does that look like from a revenue model for VMware in terms of, hey, my ELAs here, I should be able to get this Evo platform, just send me the bits.
Well, the other question that comes into play is what about supportability as well? With Evo Rail, you had to go through the ISV that was integrating it. I can tell you that my team at the bank, we met with the R&D center on the Evo team last year, and that was one of the questions that we brought up to them is, listen, we're a mission-critical support customer. There's 29 companies in the world that have access to MCS support, but when you do, it's tied to your number. Why would I go backwards and have to buy or get my support through Dell just because I want to go with a hyper-converged solution when I have top-tier, level 3, one step down from developers? But they couldn't answer me that because they said that is the way it's set up.
Well, in the reality behind that is I think we're seeing changes to the Evo licensing model in a more accepting mode, right? Because it was very restrictive at the beginning, and I think they got a lot of pushback from the customer base saying, hey, you know what, dude, not only was this system under-spec'd and kind of not what we were looking for, but in terms of how we want to license and leverage it, it doesn't work. And also in terms of the companies who are going to sell it, right? Some organizations would sell an Evo unit and maybe the internal sales team doesn't get comped on the hardware or on the licensing, right? So you're selling a product that's 50% licensing in terms of what the cost is, and you're only getting comped on half of that. And so, I've never sold Evo Rail. I've never seen one except here on the floor, but
they're right over there.
Yeah, they're just boxes, dude.
It's not a myth?
No, I mean literally, like right there.
That Pac-Man machine over there?
No.
All of them.
No, see the thing?
I don't think the people on this they're watching.
Oh wait, yeah. Anyone watching? Yeah, you can't see the thing, but I see the thing.
The thing?
Beyond the spider webs.
Everyone's like, "What is he pointing at?"
All right. Well,
he's a disgruntled little fella.
So go on.
So, I don't know what to think about that anymore because I heard about it for a little bit. I sure have not seen, at least from my perspective, I haven't seen anybody, even want to talk about it. Or at least none of the customers I've been to.
Yeah, I would say I have yet to see one in the wild myself. Exactly.
I can say the same thing for a lot of technology. I mean,
it just, you hear it in marketing slides,
right?
You never actually see it in practice. It just doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, I also think when we look at the Evo platform, right? You look at the competitors in the space for hyper-converged infrastructure. You look at Nutanix and what they have to offer. You look at SimpliVity. You even go and look at something like Scale Computing, and now like the 5,000 other software companies that now are hyper-converged. So Maxta, StoreGrid, SpringPath. Everybody is trying. GridStore, StoreMed. I mean, seriously, there's a list.
Yeah.
And everybody is trying to push that hyper-converged message. In reality, it's combining storage and compute nodes and distributing the story beside them, layering the value on top. Was Evo completed, or was it rushed to market, not fully baked, just to have something out there? Because there's really not a lot of value outside of the implementation tool.
Exactly. If you're looking
I just go
seriously,
vSAN Ready node, which is cheaper.
right. If you're serious about going hyper-converged, the other players are in there 100%, and they're doing it better.
And that's also, so I'll get to it in a second, Tim. And that's also just a matter of, when we see large organizations take on something like this to follow a trend that's actually come organically out of the startup community, they tend to 1.0 it, and that 1.0 looks really immature.
Yeah, I mean, large enterprise organizations are, I'll take my experience in the financials, are highly risk averse. I can tell you that we have a hyper-converged initiative underway. It could take a year to even vet it out. Of course, we're looking at Evo because that's what everybody wants to push. We're looking at Nutanix. We're looking at SimpliVity. The problem is that all the buzz, all the meat is behind Nutanix. You don't want to put something in just because the sales rep wants to sell it to you. At least on the customer side.
No, I get it. But then there are those relationships that do exist where stuff is dropped off, and I didn't order this, but we are a customer of this particular caliber. You're going to get this and play with it and give us
it a
feedback.
spin.
Exactly, right? I've seen lots of different products that come into market. Do you want to talk into the mic?
He stole my mic.
But no, I mean, back when I was, an actual person who did technology stuff, a long time ago. If somebody drops some stuff off in my dock, and I'm like, damn, dog, I'm totally going to play with that. But, the thing is, I had to pay for everything. And that's probably the vast majority of, I would say, the people in this bill, attending this conference are really paying for the products that they have, so they have to spend the time and effort to vet those properly. Not all of us are, have $10 billion IT budgets. In fact, very few people do.
Well, and can we consider Evo Rack hyper-converged even? I mean, it almost reminds me more of VCE, like a vBlock or a FlexPod.
Yeah, no, it's a vSpecs type solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially it's a
it's
licensing
all VMware.
model. Yeah, all VMware-based technologies licensed as such, packaged with some wizards. I'm afraid. I'm always terrified that we're getting so dumbed down by everything being point click.
Which interesting note is Ansible behind the scenes.
Well, and there you go. So who's going to buy Ansible? Right, and then and to that point, how easy is it for another organization or another company to do the same thing? I mean, really, all it is prepackaged orchestration.
That's all it is.
Yes,
Completely.
at a premium.
Yeah.
Which I don't know any of the pricing, so I couldn't really tell you about it. So,
Which, not that prepackaged automation and orchestration are a bad thing necessarily. I mean, not every company can go out and do it themselves, right? Sometimes that's necessary, but whether they're doing it the right way, whether we want to stick with all one vendor, I think there are a lot of other questions to ask.
no, and I see that predominantly in the OpenStack space, because I play both sides of the fence in the virtualization sphere, and, there are very few organizations that have the people on staff that could fully deploy and get something as complex as OpenStack out the door, not to mention doing the same thing and turn around, even with all of the great VMware technologies and this massive ecosystem of people associated with it, to turn around and build an Ansible-based deliverable like that would take a lot of manpower.
But don't you look? You can look at it from the other side too. That says if a customer doesn't have the manpower to do that to begin with, then they probably don't have the budget to afford the price tag on something like this. Now, again, I don't know the price tag. Okay, I'm not a sales guy at all. But that would be the first thing that would come up in my head as a potential red flag. Is if you can't afford to have the talent on staff to do something like that from end to end for you, then more than likely your budget probably isn't super
You're not
high.
the target audience.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and then the reality is I think certain technologies are released by vendors with a specific price point and target audience in mind, being that, like, let's say, for instance, like something like an NSX, from what I understand. Shh.
I was about to say someone
Earmuffs.
might backhand you.
But no, in certain respects, so like say VMware integrated OpenStack, right? There's certain components of that require a certain threshold of spend in order to get something like that up and running, even to test it. Are you limiting by selection and by pricing the customers that you want to approach? Obviously, that's the case. But at least in my view.
Well, once you get to a certain size, does it really matter? Well, when you're dealing with your Cisco's and they just come in and lead with that 61% discount plus, I mean, it sticker price really almost becomes irrelevant.
I mean, I don't think I don't know anybody who's ever paid list price for anything. Right?
The small customer who does not have the stroke.
That's what I was about to say. That's what I'm talking about. Is that
except for VMware licensing, I don't think I ever get a discount on that.
Yeah, I mean, the smaller customers is I think the only one who actually is paying probably full list price because they don't have those relationships. They don't. Your sale.
They don't rate it.
I don't know. I've worked with a lot of small customers, and if they're going through partners and things, there's usually a hefty discount applied. I mean, at least in my experience,
a little bit of wiggle room in there. I would hope.
A little bit, not that big number that the enterprises get.
Probably not.
Yeah, but also keep in mind. I mean, I always complain about this, but I could spend 6 months working to close a $50,000 SMB deal, or I could spend 6 months working to close a $5 million enterprise deal.
True, but when you figure 10% of VMware's market is enterprise, 90% is that SMB sweet spot. That there's 10 million.
So you
of
make
those
it up on
businesses.
volume, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Look at things like vCloud Director. The penetration rate, according to an article I read the other day, was 5% of VMware customers actually used it or put it out there, right? And it wasn't the most perfect solution out there, but there's still vCloud Director 8 beta is just closing up right now, right?
Right, and the part of the issue is all these SMB companies, they've got one guy or a very small subset of that, small team that's handling all of IT for their entire company. They don't have time to get into DevOps or coding or look at OpenStack because there's just not enough time in a day for them to do it. And it's kind of a shame because that's where you really want to leverage as much automation as possible because you just don't have the time. But turn around to get to that point, it's almost impossible.
No, I totally agree. It's funny because I learned the hard way that automation should be something you start on day one. But if you're trying to do it on day 500, it's a lot harder. So you may not think you need it when you're 10 VMs. You certainly need it when you're 200, and you definitely can't live without it if you're 2,000.
It's almost counterintuitive because exactly what Tim said as well, that the companies that truly benefit from it are not just enterprises. I mean, I'll take, for instance, we just bought another bank in Pennsylvania a couple months ago. The deal closed. This bank was small, had about 300 plus branches. Because of the small stature of the bank, they were 100% virtualized on x86, and they were as agile as could be. They had end-to-end scripting just about for
competitive
everything.
advantage for them, right?
Absolutely. Now, a company that is that small is able to take advantage of agility. Us, on the other hand, with 2,700 branches and 55,000 employees, steering that ship is
slower,
archaic.
Right. And, obviously the banking industry is probably the least agile. Outside of like the high-frequency traders and the Goldman Sachs of the world, it's like they definitely, you said it best, risk-averse to the extreme. So, all right, looks like we got about 3 minutes left here. I guess we could probably close it down here in a few minutes. Let's do some final parting shots. Anybody got anything they want to plug? You just want to go drink? Hire me.
I'm a VCDX for hire.
Hire Tim.
Hire Tim.
I figured I was going to get Tim a shirt that said VCDX looking for work. We'll do anything.
We'll VCDX for food.
Well, I'm just figuring VMware themselves will probably pick him up this week because it would look bad for the program to have him out there.
You are the first unemployed VCDX on the planet, Tim. Tell us about that.
Second.
It's a bad week to be a Tim. We're both unemployed this week.
Well, Nutanix has got the Pokemon of VCDXs. So
That's true.
Really?
I must add, that was awesome.
So that's...
And for those of you
We were just
watching, you
humbled.
know what I'm talking about.
Just very humbled.
Oh, well, you just have to say it. All right, Tim, What can you disclose? Anything of importance or interest coming up?
Anything important at all whatsoever? My new job? New job, do tell. Absolutely. Yes, I will be taking over a brand new solutions architect, consulting architect position with VMware.
The mothership.
The mothership, I know.
You sit and just badmouth the shit out of them.
I don't actually think I was bad-mouthing anything. I think I was just making very informed decisions, informing the audience of your little show here.
You know what, though, you're going to have to work on? That at the bank, we...
I'm looking forward to seeing you shake Pat Gelsinger's hand tomorrow.
Uh-oh. I forgot about that.
Now you have to wear pants to work.
I'm still working
not
on.
mom
I'm still
jeans.
based out of my house.
Wrap it up. James.
Oh, what? No. I don't have
Is it a sword
anything.
fight?
I really just don't have anything. It's just a lot of fun, as always.
Always great to see you. Lauren.
Plug the podcast I'm on with Jonathan Frappier, Mike Stanley, and Shane Weinbrett called Size Matters Tech. Focus on technology in the SMB.
There we go, the SMB perspective.
Size matters. It definitely has to do with booth size.
Booth size matters.
All
Remember
size.
that.
Booth
size.
size matters. And obviously, signing off here, I'm Gabriel Champman. You can always find me on the Twitter. Bacon is King. Stop by the Solid Fire booth and chat about whatever. Get some socks. vExperts, definitely come by and get your Cards Against Humanity deck that we made for you guys, because that's been a lot of fun. And hey, that's the show for today. Thanks for watching, listening, downloading. Peace.